Good morning, brave adventurers, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Ash, this is AshQuest, and today I would like to play Lone Wolf. Lone Wolf is a single-player role-playing adventure book series. It kind of plays out like the choose-your-own-adventure books, except it also incorporates a combat system with a choose a random number from the table in the back of the book mechanic. Now, I'm not going to be using this combat system as is because the method of selecting the number is very much close your eyes and point to one, open your eyes, and that's what you chose. I think that could be a bit exploitable on camera, so I'm going to be using a 10-sided die to emulate the getting of the results for the combat table. But I'm going to be starting and playing Flight from the Dark, which is the very first book in the series. This book series is by Joe Diver and Gary Chalk, Gary Chalk being the illustrator for this and many, many other works over the last few decades, including some artwork for HeroQuest. And we'll just read this. I know that there are apps out there that sort of simulate the Lone Wolf experience. I wanted to do it in book form, at least start off that way, and I may stay that way. I have with me my 10-sided die, my dice tray, the book, a pad to keep track of my stats, and a number 2 pencil, because is there any other kind of pencil? We'll start from page 1, essentially, and we'll read as we go along, and I will be creating my character in this episode because there's actually a lot that goes into the creation of your Lone Wolf when you first start this game. You don't have to start from book 1. You can actually start from later books in the series. However, starting earlier and progressing through the adventure will give you an advantage should you survive and succeed in the adventure. You can carry your skills and equipment and crowns to the next adventure, which would give you a significant advantage over somebody just starting out in that book. There are a number of weapons that your character can equip, a number of skills that you can learn and master, and all of these things come into play during the selection of the next part of the book, whenever we are faced with a choice. There are 350 different sections in here. A successful playthrough will only use a fraction of those, maybe a significant minority. But there are a lot of endings in the book where if you make the wrong choice, your character will die. Now, we're not going to be playing Iron Man mode. If we die over the course of the adventure, I will be starting back at a save point. And at the save point, I will record what crowns, items, and skills I have. And when I die, I will go back to that point in the book. I'm not just going to go back to the last page. I think that would be cheesing it a bit, or maybe I will do it that way. I don't know. You guys can let me know how you think I should approach that situation. As time goes on, we may feel that one way is more appropriate than another. So let's begin looking at the book. The bearer of the scroll, namely Blank, is an initiate in the disciplines of the Kai. The Kai being the tribe, teaches us our skills. This is where my name would go, but I don't want to write in the book. This is from 1984. And for anybody curious, this is the Pacer Berkeley edition with ISBN. Can't see it here. There we go. There's your ISBN. Should you need to know exactly what book I have. And this is printed in the US. However, it does say early on in the book that it contains... Oh, where'd it go? There it goes. This Berkeley Pacer book contains the complete text of the original edition. So, I know that there's issues with translations out there, with translating British English to American English, I guess. And somewhere in the different editions, there are situations where you can lock yourself from progressing through to the end of the book. Soft locks. In other words, errors made during the editing process that keep you from getting onto the right path. We're going to do our best to avoid those or learn about them as we come across those situations, but I think we'll be fine for this first book. So, you are the sole survivor of a devastating attack on the monastery, where you were learning the skills of the Kai Lords. You swear vengeance on the Dark Lords for the massacre of the Kai warriors, and with a sudden flash of insight, you know what you must do. You must set off on a perilous journey to the capital city to warn the king of the terrible threat that faces his people, for you are now the last of the Kai. You are now Lone Wolf. Joe Diver is a contributing writer to White Dwarf, Britain's leading fantasy games magazine. The Lone Wolf series is the culmination of 7 years of research and involvement with the unique world of fantasy. He is currently at work on a huge compendium based on the world of Magnamund. And Gary Chalk was working as a children's book illustrator when he became involved in adventure gaming, an interest which eventually led to the creation of several successful games. He is the inventor and illustrator of some of Britain's biggest-selling fantasy games. I suppose I didn't mean to read the biographies, but it just happened. Our action chart's been filled out by the previous owner of this book, who I would guess may have been a child. Not to make fun of anybody's handwriting. We'll have all of the things we need on our pad. We're going to go ahead and write in our 6 Kai skills once we are able to see the descriptions of them. And then for our weapons, we will write those in. And then for our backpack, we will be writing those in. Backpack seems like it's going to take quite a bit. Oh, a maximum of 8 articles. So what I can do is go ahead and put down all 8 of those. And then special items, which we don't seem to have a limit on those. So I'm sure that their usage and acquisition is probably curated. And then finally, the belt pouch. We will have a combat skill, which will go at the top of our page, and we will have endurance points. Endurance points being our hit points, essentially, and our combat skill being the number that enemies have to... that will actually give us an advantage or a disadvantage in combat against enemies of others. We have a second action chart. We have a third. We have 2. That's cool. The story so far. In the northern land of Summerland, it has been the custom for many centuries to send the children of the warrior lords to the monastery of Kai. There they are taught the skills and disciplines of their noble fathers. The Kai monks are masters of their art, and the children in their charge love and respect them in spite of the hardships of their training. For one day, when they have finally learned the secret skills of the Kai, they will return to their homes equipped in mind and body to defend themselves against the constant threat of war from the Dark Lords of the West. In olden times, during the Age of the Black Moon, the Dark Lords waged war on Summerland. The conflict was a long and bitter trial of strength that ended in victory for the Summerlending at the Great Battle of Machengorge. King Ulnar and the allies of Durinor broke the Dark Lord armies at the pass of Moitura and forced them back into the bottomless abyss of Machengorge. Vashna, mightiest of the Dark Lords, was slain upon the sword of King Ulnar, called Summersword, the Sword of the Sun. Since that age, the Dark Lords have vowed vengeance upon Summerland and the House of Ulnar. Now, it is in the morning of the Feast of Feman, when all of the Kai Lords are present at the monastery for the celebrations. Suddenly, a great black cloud comes from out of the western skies. So many are the numbers of the black-winged beasts that fill the sky that the sun is completely hidden. The Dark Lords, ancient enemy of the Summerlending, are attacking. The war has begun. On this fateful morning, you, Silent Wolf, the name given to you by the Kai, have been sent to collect firewood in the forest as a punishment for your inattention in class. As you are preparing to return, you see to your horror a vast cloud of black leathery creatures swoop down and engulf the monastery. Dropping the wood, you race to the battle that has already begun. But in the unnatural dark, you stumble and strike your head on a low tree branch. As you lose consciousness, the last thing that you see in the poor light are the walls of the monastery crashing to the ground. Many hours pass before you wake. With tears in your eyes, you now survey the scene of destruction. Raising your face to the clear sky, you swear vengeance on the Dark Lords for the massacre of the Kai warriors, and with a sudden flash of realization, you know what you must do. You must set off on a perilous journey to the capital city to warn the king of the terrible threat that now faces his people, for you are now the last of the Kai. You are now the lone wolf. Alright, the game rules. Keep a record of our adventure on the action chart, which I have made a copy of here, rudimentary. For further adventuring, you can copy the chart out yourself or get it photocopied. During your training as a Kai Lord, you have developed fighting prowess, combat skill. Before you set off on your adventure, you need to measure how effective your training has been. To do this, take a pencil and with your eyes closed, point out the blunt end of it onto the random number table on the last page of the book. If you pick 0, it counts as 0. The first number that you pick in this way represents your combat skill. Add 10 to the number you picked and write the total in the combat skills section. So, we'll go ahead and roll for our combat skill. This is going to affect the entire series. I hope it's not a 0. Well, the good news is it's not a 0. And the bad news is it is a 1. I suppose I should expect no less. If we're adding 10 to it, that means our combat skill is 11. When you fight, your combat skill will be pitted against that of your enemy. A high score in this section is therefore very desirable. The second number you pick from the random number table represents your powers of endurance. Add 20 to this number, and write the total in the endurance section. It's possible that this could be a 0. That's actually right in the crevice. That should by rights be a 1 or a 2, but I'm going to go ahead and re-roll. It's a 7. I may need to choose a different die for that. That means our endurance points are 27. We'll keep a running total of endurance here, because we're going to be losing quite a bit of endurance as we fight our enemies. If you are wounded in combat, you will lose endurance points. If at any time your endurance points fall to 0, you are dead and the adventure is over. Lost endurance points can be regained during the course of the adventure, but your number of endurance points can never go above the number with which you start your adventure. Over the centuries, the Kai monks have mastered the skills of the warrior. These skills are known as the Kai disciplines, and they are taught to all Kai Lords. You have learned only 5 of the skills listed below, out of I think 11. The choice of which 5 skills these are is for you to make. As all of the disciplines will be of use to you at some point on your perilous quest, pick your 5 with care. The correct use of a discipline at the right time can save your life. We can choose from camouflage, hunting, sixth sense, tracking, healing, weapon skill, mind shield, mind blast, animal kinship, and mind over matter. Oh, there are 10 skills. Alright, so obviously we're going to choose weapon skill. I would like to choose healing. Something about healing. Wait a minute, I've got room for 6 Kai skills. Is that because of the one that I gain if I win the book? You can have a 6th discipline if you complete book 1 successfully. Okay, yes. So we'll go ahead and write hunting. Ooh, what kind of character would I like to play? Actually, somebody who can heal quite a bit. If I choose healing, the discipline can be used to restore endurance points lost in combat. If you possess this skill, you may restore 1 endurance point to your total for every numbered section of the book you pass through in which you are not involved in combat. This is only to be used after your endurance has fallen to below its original level. Remember that your endurance cannot rise above its original level. So that, without a doubt, is a skill that I would like to have. Healing will allow me to have a +1. That's gonna be a bit of a cheat, I think, but maybe not. We might get into a combat that decimates us, and then get into another one right after. We'll definitely have weapon skill. If weapon skill is to be one of your Kai disciplines, pick a number in the usual way from the random number table on the last page of the book and then find the corresponding weapon from the list below. This is the weapon in which you have skill. When you enter combat carrying this weapon, you add 2 points to your combat skill. Alright. And the available weapons are a dagger, a spear, a mace, a short sword, a warhammer, a sword, an axe, a sword again, a quarterstaff, and a broadsword. I guess sword is just meant to be more of the it's higher chances of getting it. So we'll go ahead and roll. This will kind of determine, I think, what kind of character I'd like to build thematically. A 0. That is the third now extremely low roll that I have earned this playthrough. If this is any indication about how this is going to go, well, it's not good. I have weapon skill dagger. The fact that you are skilled with a weapon does not mean you set out on the adventure carrying that particular weapon. However, you have opportunities to acquire weapons in the course of your adventures. If you pick the axe, you are lucky enough to be skilled in the one weapon Lone Wolf is carrying from the start of the adventure. You cannot carry more than 2 weapons. So if you choose the skill, write weapon skill in blank plus 2 combat skill points if this weapon carried on your action chart. So for healing, I think I could remember that it's +1, I'll just write it anyway, per section. I'll remember that it's not combat. 2 weapon skill, and +2 to dagger. No backsies, I'm going to keep all my rolls. What would be the fun if I gave myself mulligans and retries? I might as well start by creating my own character and give them max stats, right? I'm not going to do that. Oh, and I know that we're going to have an axe, so I'm going to go ahead and write that in there as well right now. Next, we have Mind Shield. No points lost when attacked by Mind Blast. Interesting. Mind Blast allows you to attack an enemy with the force of your mind. It can be used at the same time as normal combat weapons and adds 2 extra points to your combat skill. Not all the creatures encountered will be harmed by Mind Blast. You will be told if a creature is immune. I'm going to choose Mind Blast because not really the kind of thing that I would choose normally, but I feel like it's going to be a great boon since I have very low combat skill. That's if I use Mind Blast. And because it can be used at the same time as normal combat weapons. Alright, Mind over Matter enables a Kai Lord to move small objects with powers of concentration. Animal Kinship enables a Kai Lord to communicate with some animals and to be able to guess the intentions of others. I like that one a lot, actually. I can choose 2 more. Hunting. The skill ensures that a Kai Lord will never starve in the wild. He will always be able to hunt for food for himself, except in areas of wasteland and desert. The skill also enables a Kai Lord to be able to move stealthily when stalking his prey. If you choose the skill right Hunting, no need for a meal when instructed to eat. Sixth Sense. The skill may warn a Kai Lord of imminent danger. It also reveals the true purpose of a stranger or strange object encountered in your adventure. Tracking. The skill enables a Kai Lord to make the correct choice of a path in the wild, to discover the location of a person or object in a town or city, to read the secrets of footprints or tracks. Camouflage. The skill enables a Kai Lord to blend in with his surroundings. Countryside, he can hide undetected amongst trees and rocks and pass close to an enemy without being seen. In a town or city, it enables him to look and sound like a native of that area. It can help him to find shelter or a safe hiding place. So I think tracking is going to be the one that saves our lives. As in, we won't have as many sudden death endings if we choose tracking. For my last one, I'm kind of wanting hunting, but I can also kind of see that being not as necessary since we have a high EP and we have healing. Plus, I'm not sure how much wasteland and desert I'm actually going to get into. Mind over matter. That's the one I don't want. I think animal kinship seems like a great one to have, just because I like it. I like the idea of being able to speak to animals. So that shall be my 5th skill. And now I have all 5 of the skills that I chosen. Time to see what I have. You are dressed in the green tunic and cloak of a Kai initiate. You have little with you to arm yourself for survival. All you possess is an axe and a backpack containing 1 meal. Hanging from your waist is a leather pouch containing gold crowns. To find out how many, pick a number from the random number table. This number equals the number of gold crowns that you possess at the start of the adventure. I hope I roll a 0. And I have rolled a 6. I have rolled a 6. I have 6 crowns. Backpack, I have 1 meal. You discover amongst the smoking ruins of the monastery a map of Summerland. Note under special items on the action chart, showing the capital city of Holmgard and the land of Duranor, far to the east. You place the map inside your tunic for safety. Just like that, we have begun to play Lone Wolf. This is a map of Summerland. Summerland. You also find one of the following. To discover which of the above items you find, you must pick a number from the random number table. Looks like there's a broadsword, a spear, 12 gold crowns, a quarterstaff, a mace, a healing potion, a chainmail waistcoat, 2 meals, a helmet, and a sword. It's really gearing us up now, getting us ready to go out into the world and start adventuring. Interesting that they let you choose your character traits and then throw a completely random item at you. I like that. I have rolled a 9. That dot is at the bottom of the 9. Bottom of the 9. I'm definitely going to get a brighter dice to show on the channel. A 9 is 12 gold crowns. So from 6, I now have 18. Now that you have your equipment, the following list shows you how it is carried. You don't need to make notes, but you can refer back to this list in the course of your adventure. A sword is carried in the hand, a helmet is worn on the head, food is placed in the backpack. Chainmail is worn on the body, the mace is carried in the hand, as well as the healing potion, as well as the quarterstaff and spear, and broadsword. Gold crowns are carried in the belt pouch, and the healing potion is carried in the backpack. I think that's all clear enough. The maximum number of weapons we can carry is 2. We can carry only 8 articles in our backpack, including meals. Special items are not carried. You will be told how to carry a special item. Gold crowns are always carried in the belt pouch. It'll hold a maximum of 50 crowns. Food is carried in your backpack. It's all 1 item, or each meal rather counts as 1 item. Any item that may be of use and can be picked up on your adventure and entered on your action chart is given capital letters in the text. Unless you are told is it a special item, carry it in your backpack. How to use your equipment? Weapons aid you in combat. If you enter a combat with no weapons, deduct 4 points from your combat skill and fight with your bare hands. If you find a weapon during the adventure, you may pick it up and use it, but you can only carry 2 weapons at once, because you've only got 2 hands. More. You may exchange or discard backpack items at any point when you are not involved in combat. Special items. Each special item has a particular purpose or effect. You may be told this when the item is discovered, or it may be revealed to you as the adventure progresses. Okay. Gold crowns. The local currency is the crown, which is a small gold coin. Gold crowns can be used on your adventure to pay for transport, food, or even as a bribe. Many of the creatures that you will encounter possess gold crowns or have them hidden in their lairs. Whenever you kill a creature, you may take any gold crowns that it has and put them in your belt pouch. Interesting. Food you'll need to eat regularly during your adventure. If you don't have any food when you're instructed to eat a meal, you will lose 3 endurance points. If you have chosen the Kai discipline of hunting as one of your 5 skills, you will not need to take off a meal when instructed to eat. Oh. I don't like that. I'm now wondering if I should have gone ahead and chose hunting, but like I said, no backsies. Healing potion. I'm not going to worry about reading about that. Well, it can restore 4 endurance points. That's fun. That's just like HeroQuest's healing potions. No relation, of course. But very interesting. And rules for combat. At the start of a combat, we'll enter lone wolves and the enemy's endurance points in the appropriate boxes on the combat record section of the action chart, which we'll just keep track of those. And the sequence of combat is as follows. Add any extra points gained through your Kai disciplines to your current combat skill total. Subtract the combat skill of your enemy from this total. The result is your combat ratio. Oh, so according to that text, I will always have +2 to my combat skill because I have Mind Blast. So I will always be able to keep that. And actually, it's right here mentioned in the next paragraph. I'll get to that. Subtract the combat skill of your enemy from this total. The result is your combat ratio. Enter it on the action chart. So we'll have a combat ratio that we calculate, and that ratio up at the top here affects exactly which row we are. Well, it affects the roll that we make, essentially. So while one of these numbers is random, 1 through 0, rather 0 through 9, the result of the roll is going to be different depending on the combat ratio. So we will refer back to this table until we get the combat memorized, of course. So for an example, Lone Wolf, combat skill 15, which I have lower than that, is ambushed by a winged devil, combat skill 20. He is not given the opportunity to evade combat, but must stand and fight as the creature swoops down on him. Lone Wolf has the Kai discipline of Mind Blast, so he adds 2 points to his combat skill, giving a total combat skill of 17, so it is like I thought. That's good. He subtracts the Winged Devil's combat skill from his own, giving a combat ratio of -3, because 17 minus 20 is -3. -3 is noted on the action chart as the combat ratio. When you have your combat ratio, pick a number from the random number table. In this case, I'll be rolling a die. And then we will turn to the combat results table on the inside back cover of the book. Along the top of the chart are shown the combat ratio numbers. Basically, you'll both lose endurance points, or one of you will be immediately killed, perhaps. E would represent points lost by the enemy, LW will represent points lost by Lone Wolf. So I don't need to go through the examples, I think that's clear enough. We'll basically be taking one turn to roll a dice, affect both Lone Wolf and the enemy as applicable by subtracting endurance points, and then roll the dice again, and go again and again until we're done. Unless otherwise instructed, or unless you have an option to evade, the next round of combat now starts. Interesting that. The process of combat continues until the endurance points of either the enemy or Lone Wolf are reduced to 0, at which point the one with the 0 score is declared dead. If the enemy dies, Lone Wolf proceeds but with his endurance points reduced. Okay, so the way I was thinking, because it's been a long time since I ever picked up or read through a Lone Wolf book, was that Mind Blast was sort of like an action. But it's not an action, it's completely passive. It's simply implied that you are using Mind Blast against your enemy. Is that correct? Perhaps we'll get the chance to use Mind Blast as an action against an enemy. Because in those rules, it doesn't say that you have any sort of benefit or advantage other than getting the +2 to your combat skill. During your adventure, you may be given the chance to evade combat. If you have already engaged in a round of combat and decide to evade, calculate the combat for that round in the usual manner. All points lost by the enemy as a result of that round are ignored, and you make your escape. Only Lone Wolf may lose endurance points during that round, but then that is the risk of running away. You may only evade if the text or particular section allows you to do so. I think I will never evade unless I am very low on endurance points. Kai Wisdom. Your mission will be one of great danger, for the Dark Lords and their servants are a cruel and fierce enemy who give and expect no mercy. Use the map on the back cover of the book to help you steer a correct course for the capital. Make notes as you progress through the story, for they will be of great help in future adventures. Many things that you find will aid you during the adventure. Some special items will be of use in future lone wolf adventures, and others may be red herrings of no real use at all, so be selective in what you decide to keep. There are many routes to the king, but only one involves a minimum of danger. With a wise choice of Kai disciplines and a great deal of courage, any player should be able to complete the mission no matter how weak their initial combat skill or endurance points score. The honor and memory of the Kai Lords will go with you on your perilous journey. Good luck. We finally make it to the beginning section of the book, and I will read through the beginning section and we'll make our first choice. You must make haste, for your sense is not... You must make haste, for you sense it is not safe to linger by the smoking remains of the ruined monastery. Typo in the very first paragraph, the very first line? Unless that is how they... Can't be right. Anyway, the black-winged beasts could return at any moment. You must set out for the Sommerland capital of Holmgard and tell the king the terrible news of the massacre, that the whole elite of Kai warriors, save yourself, have been slaughtered. Without the Kai Lords to lead her armies, Sommerland will be at the mercy of their ancient enemy, the Dark Lords. Fighting back tears, you bid farewell to your dead kinsmen. Silently, you promise that their deaths will be avenged. You turn away from the ruins and carefully descend the steep track. At the foot of the hill, the path splits into two directions, both leading into a large wood. If you wish to take the right path into the wood, turn to 85. If you wish to follow the left track, turn to 275. And if you wish to use your Kai discipline of Sixth Sense, turn to 141. So, let's take a look at the beginning of the book quickly. The Kai Monastery is here. This is where we are. We've come to a fork in the road, although I think that this is a river, so I'm not quite sure. I think left would take us to Torin then, while right would take us to Holmgard, if I'm not mistaken. And we have a key, but we do not have what might mean roads. So I don't think I'm going to have any help there. But I kind of think, this being the first book, we don't really necessarily have to play it safe. We can do whatever we want. Here at the very beginning of the book, I don't think they're going to kill me immediately. I could be very wrong. Let's take the left track and turn to 275. By the way, we're going to use the honor system. We're going to navigate to the section, read only that section, and go from there. So while you may be able to see text in other places, we're not going to read that text. We're not going to know the context of that text. We're just going to read the section that we've turned to. 275. You have followed this twisting track for about 20 minutes when you hear the beating of wings high above the trees. Looking up, you see a large Kran approaching from the north, its huge black wings casting a gigantic shadow on the trees below. On its back are two creatures armed with long spears. They are mountain Geoks, small ugly creatures full of hatred and malice. Many centuries ago, their ancestors were used by the Dark Lords to build the infernal city of Helgadad, which lies in the volcanic wastelands beyond the Durnkrag mountain range. The construction of the city was long and torturous, and only the strongest of the creatures survived the heat and poisonous atmosphere of Helgadad. Quickly you dive for shelter of a large fern tree as the crown passes overhead. With heart pounding, you pray that your quick reactions have saved you from being spotted. Pick a number from the random number table. It's a 1. This dice is going to go sit on the dunce chair. If you have picked 0 through 4, turn to 345. You pull up your hood, the hood of your green Kai cloak, and hold your breath as the crown circles above. After a few minutes, you hear the frantic curses of the Geoks. The beating of crown wings fades as they disappear towards the west. Your quick reactions have saved you from capture and likely death. You can now return to the track by turning to 272 or push on under cover of the trees and turn to 19. I think I'll push on under the cover of the tree. No. Yeah, because I don't remember the other section. It'll be 19. 19. Just ahead through the tall trees, you can see clumps of dark red gallow brush, a thorny briar with sharp crimson barbs. The common name for this forest weed is sleeptooth, for the thorns are very sharp and can make you feel weak and sleepy if they scratch your skin. If you have the Kai discipline of tracking, turn to 69. I do. And also nice. My other options, which I'm not sure if they are options, if you have the skill that the passage references. Because it says to turn to 69, not that I can, if I wish, turn to 69. But it could be that both of those other options are bad ends, so we'll turn to 69. For those wondering if I didn't make it clear the last time I played, this is my first playthrough of Flight from the Dark. It's not my first Lone Wolf experience, but I never started from Book 1 proper. So now I'll be able to build up my character and get to the part that I always got stuck in the book that I had, and completely decimate my foes. 69, you are very near a friendly village. Avoid the gallow brush and turn to 272. Interesting. So I could have chosen to go to 272 anyway, but tracking has let me know what the correct choice would have been. .272 it is, and it is near an illustration by Gary Chalk. However, it doesn't pertain to what we're doing here. Keeping a watchful eye on the sky above, you move quickly along the track. You recall that this route leads to Fogwood, a small cluster of huts that have been used by a family of charcoal burners for nearly 50 years. After 20 minutes, you reach the edge of a clearing where the huts are grouped in a small circle. There is no sign of the usual mist of wood smoke which gives Fogwood its apt name, and the huts are unusually quiet. If you have the Kai discipline of tracking, you may turn to 134. Alright, that's what I'll do. Because the other option is, if you do not possess this skill, you prepare your weapon and stealthily approach the huts. We're going to turn to 134, and in this case it did give me the option, so I can see that at times it's going to simply tell me to perform select options if I have a referenced skill, and at other times it's going to allow me to choose. 134. Using your skills, you detect Geok tracks around the perimeter of the clearing. The prints are fresh, and you can tell that these cruel minions of the Dark Lords were in this area less than 2 hours ago. Forewarned by this knowledge, if you decide to investigate the huts, turn to 305. If you would rather avoid the clearing, turn to 40. I'm going to investigate the huts. I need to get to the king, but I need not take the safest route there. Plus, I'm enticed by the possibility of striking down some enemies. Through the open doorway of the first hut, you can see the body of a charcoal burner lying face down on the rough stone floor. He has been murdered, stabbed in the back by a spear. All his furniture and belongings have been smashed and broken, and not one piece remains intact. This is the evil handiwork of Jax without any doubt, for they delight in the destruction of all things. A quick check of the other huts reveals a similar story of murder and wreckage. In the last hut that you search, you discover a Jax spear, proof of your suspicions. You may keep this weapon if you wish. More determined than ever, now to succeed in your mission, you continue along the track. I will take the Geok spear, and it shall be my second weapon, until such a time that I can trade one in for the dagger, which is the weapon in which I have weapon skill. specialty. Turn to 105. In the distance, perched on the branch of an old oak tree is a jet black raven. If you have the Kai discipline of animal kinship, you may call to this bird. I have it! I did not read this book prior to choosing my skills, but I have chosen my skills very fortuitously. I will call to my friend Raven. 298. I love ravens, of course I would call to it. I'd be very disappointed if I hadn't chosen that skill. The head of the bird slowly turns, and it curses you. I can't say I blame that reaction. An instant later, it flies off above the trees and has soon disappeared. Shocked by what you have heard, you are now sure that the fledgling was a scout of the Dark Lords, and is now probably on its way to inform them of your whereabouts. Bad bird. If you wish to continue your journey along the track, turn to 121. If you wish to leave the track and continue through the forest instead, turn to 38. I sense danger either way, but I guess I better get off the track in case I'm overwhelmed by a patrol. So 38, the dangers will be more organic, natural, not prepared. 38. For half an hour or more, you press on through the forest, through the rich vegetation and ferns. You happen upon a small, clear stream where you stop for a few minutes to wash your face and drink of the cold, fresh water. Feeling revitalized, you cross the stream and press on. You soon notice the smell of wood smoke, which seems to be drifting towards you from the north. If you wish to investigate the smell of wood smoke, turn to 128. If you would rather avoid the source of this smoke, turn to 347. I think that I'm going to be the type that does investigate the sources of trouble and smoke, and so, being that that is, I will go to 128. Hopefully it's not the folks that were after me. Carefully parting the dense foliage, you are horrified by the sight that meets you. In a small clearing ahead, 3 Geoks have tied a man to a wooden stake and are setting fire to a mass of brushwood bundled at his feet. You recognize his tunic as that of a border ranger, one of the king's men who police the kingdom near the Durncrag Mountains of the west. He has been badly beaten and is nearly unconscious. If you have the Kai discipline of hunting, I can turn to 297, but if you do not, you must attack the Gex now in order to save the ranger's life. I don't have hunting. I did consider it though. I took healing instead, but I'll go to 336. I do not mind this. Here we are. You rush into the clearing and take the Geox completely by surprise. Without a moment's hesitation, you strike out at the one nearest to you. He is dead before his body hits the ground. Yes! The other Geox unsheath their curved swords and attack you. You must fight them, one at a time. Jean-Claude Van Damme style. Geok 1 has a combat skill of 14 and an endurance of 11. Geok 2 has a combat skill of 13 and an endurance of 11. Here is the first battle in which I will engage. With a combat skill of 14, we'll refer to the combat result table. I have a combat skill of 11 plus 2, which I gained from having Mind Blast. So I have a combat skill of 13, which means that the combat ratio is -2. It's a little bit not in my favor, however, that's just for this first Geok. That doesn't mean everything. We're gonna, go ahead and roll our 10-sided dice instead of blindly picking from the combat results table, which could be used exploitatively. This is much more RPG feeling, much more fair. Well, this particular die is not fair to me, but let's roll anyway. Got a 9. That is a 9. Well, tipping it. There we go. Dot at the bottom We will refer to the combat results table. Our random number was 9, and with a combat ratio of -2, Lone Wolf loses no endurance points, while the enemy loses 10. Sweet! This Giak has 1 endurance point left. I don't have to write that down. I can remember that. And now again. Actually, he's got a combat skill of 14, and I've got a combat skill of 13, not 11. So actually the combat ratio is -1. I guess as soon as I said 15, for whatever reason, his that number replaced the 14, and I got confused. So if it's -1, it's actually still the same result because we're still reading from the -2, -1 shared column. So he loses 10 HP. We are ready to attack again. 1 bout of combat, 1 dice roll. 1 10-sided die to emulate the choosing of one of 10 possibilities in the random number table. And that's an 8. That is an 8, and this first Giak is going down. I do lose 1 endurance point, however, which I can remember that. I don't have to write that down. Well, I guess I will anyway, just very small. I now have 26. Maybe I should do ticks. I should do ticks because I'm also going to be using my healing. And for each section that I complete, each non-combat section, I will recover 1 endurance point. It's pretty OP build, actually. Combat skill notwithstanding. So the first Giak is down, and now it's time to fight the second Giak. There will be no interruptions, no stopping to celebrate my 1 kill. Simply go forward. That's a 3. My lucky streak is going to stop now. The random number being 3, the enemy and I both lose 4 endurance points. The combat ratio continuing to be a negative. Oh, no. His combat skill's 1 less. Actually, this Giak has a different combat skill. It's 13, and mine is 11 plus the 2 gained from Mind Blast, so I have a combat skill of 13, so the combat ratio is now 0. Which means, having rolled the... What did I roll? The 3? Yes. The enemy loses 5, and I lose 4. Not a huge difference in result, but it could save my life. It could mean the difference between life and death. So the Giak has 6 endurance left. Let's hope for a clean kill. That is a 6 with the dot at the bottom. And in the next episode, I'll be sure to have a better die. With the 6 and a 0-0 table, the enemy loses 8 endurance points and I lose 2, and the enemy is dead. That was a bit of an arduous battle, especially for my first battle. If you win, and I do, you free the ranger and turn to 117. The man is badly injured and near to death. If you have the Kai discipline of healing, you may ease the pain of his wounds, but he has been so seriously hurt he is beyond repair by your skills alone. He soon lapses into unconsciousness. You try to make him as comfortable as possible beneath a large forest oak. Before leaving and pressing on through the thick woodland towards the northeast, turn to 330. I have a feeling that will help us later. That's a Mauska tool that will come in handy later. Fatigued by your exertions, you stop to rest for a few minutes at a fallen tree. You notice a large bundle beneath the trunk. I have completed 1 non-combat section, so I will erase one of my lost endurance points. I'm about to complete a second one, but I'll wait till I complete it before I erase my next endurance point loss. If you wish to examine the contents of the bundle, turn to 315. If you wish to leave it where it is and continue your mission, turn to 230. I'm going to look at the bundle. 315 it is. I love humble bundles. You can get a lot of good stuff that way. Wrapped in a bundle of women's clothing is a small velvet purse containing 6 gold crowns and a tablet of perfumed soap. You may take these items and continue your journey. I suppose I will. And there's my second endurance point, and then this section is complete, so there's my third endurance point regained. I get 6 gold crowns to add to my 18, which means I now have 24. AmalgamAsh can do math. And I guess tablet of perfumed soap is going into my backpack. Tablet of soap. Perf. Turn to 213. That's where I was going to turn if I hadn't investigated the bundle. You have been trudging through the forest for nearly 2 hours. The nagging fear that you are lost begins to seem a reality. Apart from the occasional cry of a Kran in the far distance, you have seen or heard no evidence that the enemy is in this part of the forest. As you descend a rocky hillock, you see something unusual in the tangled woods ahead. Turn to 331. But not before I regain yet another endurance point. Now, I've got 3 left to recover. .331. Surrounded by thorny briars and closely packed roots, you see the entrance of a tunnel disappearing into the hillside beyond. It is approximately 7 feet in height and just over 10 feet wide. Freedom units. As you get closer, you can feel a slight breeze coming from the inky blackness. If the other end of this tunnel emerges on the far side of the hill, it could save you many hours of difficult climbing, but it could also harbor unknown danger. If you wish to enter the tunnel, turn to 170. I will, but first, I'm going to save my game right here by making note of what page I'm on, 331, just in case this is an instant death. If you wish to enter the tunnel, turn to 170. I feel confident in combat abilities, if that is where it comes to. 170. I'm going to recover that lost point. There we go. I have 25 endurance points out of 27. 170, illustration 11, and this is the illustration. It is a burrow crawler, and it is trying to strangle you. Oh, he's beautiful. The tunnel is dark and the air is much cooler than outside. You carefully advance with one hand on the tunnel wall to aid your sense of direction. You have been in total darkness for 3 minutes when you detect the foul smell of decay ahead, similar to rotting meat. If you have a torch and tinderbox in your pack, you may light the torch to see your way ahead, but I do not. Suddenly, something heavy drops from the tunnel ceiling onto your back, and you fall to your knees. It is a burrow crawler, and you must fight it, for it is trying to strangle you with its long, slimy tentacles. Oh, it has a combat skill of 17, but only 7 endurance. If you do not have a torch, deduct 3 points from your combat skill during this fight. The burrow crawler is immune to mind blast and animal kinship. Oh, God. That puts me at a horrible disadvantage. With my combat skill only being 11 and it being immune to mind blast, we take away my bonus and we deduct 3, which means my combat skill is 8, and if his combat skill is 17, that's a combat ratio of -9. Here's where we are. I can get killed by rolling a 1. I can actually get killed by rolling a 1. So, we will now fight this disgusting crawler. And we'll try really hard not to roll a 1. I've rolled a few 1s already in past rolls. So, don't fail me now. Die. I rolled a 2. I rolled a 2. A 2. The enemy loses no endurance points. Lone Wolf loses 8. Alright, I had 25 out of 27 endurance points to recover when I entered this cave. So I'm going to keep note of this in case I need to reload my save, so to speak. But I lose 8, which means I'm now down to 18 endurance points. And I'll just start writing the numbers because it'll be easier. Drink of coffee. I'm gonna need it. That is a 9. And no doubt, an extremely fortuitous roll. I still lose, in this situation, 3 of my endurance points, but the enemy loses 6. Meaning that I have 15 and he is almost dead. Or she. Or she. That is another 9. This is actually a horrible die, I think. That is another 9. I lose another 3. And the enemy dies. I didn't think I was going to make it through that. If you win, turn to 319. Let's see if this was worth it. The slimy creature lets out a long, ghastly death cry and collapses. You are near to panic and scramble to your feet, grabbing what you think is to be your belt from the jaws of the dead beast. You can see light in the far distance, and you sprint for it as fast as you can. When you finally emerge into the daylight, you fall onto the leafy ground and fight for breath in painful gasps. Slowly sitting upright, you notice that you are still wearing your belt. You had not lost it after all. What you grabbed from the jaw of the burrow crawler was a leather strap with a small pouch and a sheathed dagger halfway along it. You break open the clasp to find it contains 20 gold crowns. You may take both the dagger and the crowns if you are able to. Yes! I will take the dagger and I will drop the Giac spear. Evil, disgusting. And I will absolutely take the 20 gold crowns, which now means I have 44. I have 44 gold crowns. That was worth it. I now have the weapon in which I have weapon skill. That is going to be +2 to my combat score. My combat skill. It'll now have +2, and with Mind Blast, I actually stand more of a fighting chance against the common enemies. It's been tough, and I'm down to 12 endurance points, but with this section complete, I'm now at 13 from healing the 1. I shall erase this because I really want the dagger and the gold crowns, and erase the rest of these. 13 out of 27, that's what I have. What we'll go ahead and do is write this a bit smaller, because this will never change, I don't think. EP 27. Current 13, and now 14. Because I'm going to turn to the next page. Turn to 157. Well, feeling a little better now, you gather your equipment together and push on eastwards into the forest. Turn to 157. The forest begins to thin out until finally you can make out a road through the trees ahead. The highway is full of people heading south. Many are wheeling their possessions along on handcarts. If you wish to join the refugees and perhaps learn more of what has happened in the north, turn to 30. If you would prefer to continue to move south but under the cover of trees, turn to 167. I consider myself a person of the people. I will join these refugees. And in doing so, heal 1 endurance point because of my healing skill. Bring myself from 14 to 15. 30. The people look tired and hungry. They have come many miles from their burning city. Suddenly, you hear the beat of huge wings coming from the north. Kron! Kron! Hide yourselves! The cry goes up all along the road. Just in front of you, a wagon carrying small children breaks down, its right wheel jammed in a furrow. The children scream in panic. Here's the illustration of the children screaming in panic. If you wish to help the children, turn to 194. If you'd rather run for the cover of the trees, turn to 261. We're going to help them. We can't not help them. That's not the character that I'm playing. We have to help them. 194, you sprint towards the wagon. People are running. Oh, they also heal. One more. Everywhere in panic as the Kran make their attack, carrying their poor victims off into the darkening sky. A large Kran is hovering above the wagon and 3 snarling Jiaks drop from its back. Onto the wagon, onto the startled horses. You must fight them or leave the wagon and run to the safety of a nearby farmhouse. I can't leave the wagon. I'm going to fight the Jiaks. I'm going to turn to 208. I will gain 1 more endurance, however, in doing so. Bringing me up to 17. Just a quick coffee break. 208. The ghoulish creatures thrust their spears at you and attack. Fight these creatures as a single enemy. The Jiaks have a combat skill of 15 and an endurance of 13. Alright, here is the battle. If they have a combat skill of 15, I also, using the dagger, have a combat skill of 15. And they are not immune to Mind Blast, so that means that the combat ratio is 0 and 0. Pretty fair combat ratio. I like that. Let's go. A 1. Another excellent roll. Another excellent roll. We will consult the combat table. And with a 0-0, we've rolled a 1. The enemy loses 3 endurance. We lose 5. That brings us down to 12. They had 13. They now have 10. I'll just write my enemy stuff here if I'm not sure if I'll remember it. In this case, I don't think I will. So we roll again. Simple enough, the combat. I don't know if I should count that, because it did roll a bit off. And I think for future rolls, I'll make sure that I set this down. But that did roll onto a 0, which is probably going to kill me. And I'm just going to take the result. The zeros are here. Oh. 0 doesn't mean 0. 0 means 10. In this context, the enemy loses 12 and Lone Wolf loses none. That's incredible. I will take that. Absolutely. It may seem a bit cheap, but I would have taken the result no matter what it landed on. So, how much did I lose? 3? Oh, I lost none. I lost none. I dealt a killing blow to the Jiaks. If you win, you can run to the safety of the farmhouse by turning to 148, or you can return to the woods. Now I shall go to the farmhouse. 148. I believe the option to go to the farmhouse was a different section, but now that I've beat these monsters, it's a different result. Kicking open the door, you dive into the farmhouse. A Kran soars overhead, letting out a shriek of victory, a victim hanging in its claws. Getting to your feet, you find yourself alone, but propped against the fireplace is a warhammer. You may take this weapon if you wish. No. If you want to stay in the farmhouse, turn to 81. If you would feel safer in the forest, you can make a dash by turning to 320. If you wish to search the room further, turn to 199. That's tough. We've got 2 options for the farmhouse. You know what? Just because of the channel, I'm gonna drop my axe and I'm gonna take the warhammer. It's not significant because I don't have combat skill in it. It's not gonna do any more or less damage than anything else, but that warhammer just makes sense for the channel. I am now a dagger and warhammer carrying hero, and I like it. So I guess I'll search the room further. We'll turn to 199. Most of the cupboards and drawers are empty. Whoever lived here took nearly everything they owned with them, but you do manage to scrape together enough fruit in the cellar for 1 meal. You may mark this on your action chart. So, I have a meal. I also neglected to add my endurance point from the last peaceful. And actually, 2 peaceful. So I'm up to 14 endurance points. I'm starting to feel confident that I can fight an enemy again. We'll see. Turn to 81. After nearly an hour, the crown and their cruel riders vanish towards the west. As the shocked refugees start to emerge from the woods, you can hear the sound of horses in the distance galloping nearer. You stay hidden and wait as the riders come closer. They are the cavalry of the King's Guard, wearing the white uniforms of His Majesty's army. If you wish to call to them, turn to 183. If you would rather continue along the forest edge towards the south, turn to 200. Why would you give me the option to not call to them, is my issue. I think I have to call to them. Let's do that. 183. And that'll be another endurance point. The officer orders his men to halt and asks you your business. You tell him who you are, and how the monastery has been destroyed. He is deeply saddened to hear your news. He offers you a horse, and asks you to accompany him to Prince Pelethar, the king's son. If you accept, turn to 97. If you decide to decline, turn to 200. I don't want to decline because I think the 200 was just going to the forest to begin with. But I could be wrong. I don't want to refuse him, though. We'll go to Prince Pelethar. That is the king's son. He's going to have more of a direct line to the king anyway, and we have to let the king know about this tragedy. So we'll accept, we'll turn to 97, and we'll regain yet another endurance point. 97. Illustration 7, Overleaf. It looks like we've got a Gyak in all of its glory. Gyak? Gyak. I might go with Gyak. Ahead of you can see a fierce battle raging across a stone bridge. The clash of steel and the cries of men and beasts echo through the forest. In the midst of the fighting, you see Prince Pelethar, the king's son. He is in combat with a large gray Gorgaz, who is wielding a black axe above his scaly head. Suddenly, the prince falls wounded, a black arrow in his side. If you wish to defend the fallen prince, turn to 255. Or you can run into the forest, you slimy coward. I am turning to 255, but not before gaining my next point of endurance. Just another reminder at this monster and what he looks like. Oh, I suppose the Gyaks are the men around the prince. The prince is pretty cool. He is dressed head to toe in armor, unless that's not supposed to be a representation of the prince himself. And so 255 is where I'm going. I'm going to make sure I mark my page on page 97, just in case this goes south. We will defend the prince. The creature that you now face is a Gorgaz, one of a race of cold-blooded reptilian creatures that dwell deep in the treacherous Mach and Mire swamps. Their favorite food is human flesh. The prince's sword lies at your feet. You may pick up and use this weapon if you wish. The Gorgaz is about to strike at you. You must fight him to the death. I have my dagger and my warhammer. I'll be fine. He has a combat skill to 20 and an endurance of 30. He is also immune to Mind Blast. This might be my last battle. We are at a disadvantage, clearly. I would have had 14 combat skill, but I only have 13 because he's immune to Mind Blast. So, with his combat skill of 20, we are at a -7. That puts us here. That puts us in a very dangerous table. And with his 30 endurance, it's going to be rough. It's really, really going to be rough. Alright, I've got 17 endurance. He has 30. 30 versus 17. We are going to do non-stop die rolls. Here we go. That is a 9! That is a 9. This die is only capable of rolling 1s and 9s. I swear. There is no in between, it has no chill. A 9. He loses 7 endurance points. I still lose 2, however. That brings me to 15 and him to 23. We're slightly more fair. Slightly. He's still very strong and dangerous, and I don't like him at all. That is a 1. What did I tell you? 1s and 9s, that's all this thing can do. I lose 8 endurance points and he loses none. Which brings me to 7 versus 23. I would have to roll a 10 3 times to beat this monster, not die. That was quite the throw. Well, it's a 5. It rolled out of rotation there. A 5 is not going to be good, however. With a 5, he loses 3 and I lose 5. That brings me to 2 endurance points, and he's down to 20, despite my very strong opening attack. And then a 6. With a 6, I will lose 5 endurance points, and he will lose 4. But I have been slain by the Gorgaz. So what does this mean for me? Well, this is how I wish to play this book. My journey simply ends here because I am slain. But I don't want to stop at this point. What I would like to do is go back one section. I'll go back to 97. I will go back to my endurance points at that time of 17, and I will choose the other option. So basically, we will roleplay it out as though I tried to fight him, I failed, and I fled. It's not good. It does mark my character as a bit of a coward or a weakling or whatever, but he was a terrifying monster. I need to figure out some sort of way to penalize myself for whenever that does happen. And I will come up with something. I'd love suggestions on that down below. Perhaps losing some crowns or having to eat a meal, something like that, whenever I lose in combat. Versus, walking off of a cliff in another passage and dying immediately, something like that. But we'll figure that out, right? You'll help me, I hope. So we're going to go back to 97. Now I will run into the forest and turn to 306. I can't fight no stinking... Oh, and if I lose a combat, unless it's with a monster that I have to fight, I will not simply retry the combat. And if it's with a monster I do have to fight in order to complete the book, retrying the combat really won't... I don't know if that's cheesing or not, because it's not as if I'm going to get the same amount of hits in at the same rate. I could win a combat and be brought down to 1 endurance point. So, we'll see. We'll just see. 306. The sound of battle gradually fades behind you. Suddenly, you are pulled to the ground. 3 Jakarim have dropped from a tree above. You struggle, but it is useless, for there are too many of them for you, and they are very strong. The last thing that you hear is the vicious snarls of Jakarim as they raise their spears. Your life and your mission ends here. Oh no. 97. 97 is pivotal. I have to win that battle. I've got no other choice. So we go to 255, and we're going to try again. Why I'm going to try again, I don't know, but we have to win. So basically, we're going to win this fight, no matter what, so that I can continue playing from this point. Because I don't want to restart. So we are playing with a bit of house rule. But what I'll have to do is accept whatever endurance points I have after I have won. So that's simply it. I won't retry until I win perfectly or anything like that. I'll simply accept, and we'll fight as many times as it takes for us to complete this section. And this is at least how I want to play the first book, because I just don't see the point of getting this far, dying, and then having to start all over. So one more time, we're going to fight this Gorgaz giant lizard. I don't need to use the Prince's Sword. It won't give me any additional attack. We are still at a -7. We always will be with this monster right now. But them's the breaks. 4. And a 4 causes me to lose 6 and him 2. We're done 28 versus 15. Not a great roll. Come on. 2. Also, a terrible, terrible roll. Frustratingly so. He loses nothing and I lose 7. We're down to 8 versus his 28. This is going to lose. This is going to lose 7. A 7 would have been nice earlier. He loses 5 and I lose 4. Tell you what I might have to do. 4 versus his 23. Keep the combat table handy, since I need to constantly refer to it. A 1. And that's going to kill me. So, what I think I'm going to have to do here is look for the combination in the combat ratio that's going to hurt me the most. And kill the monster with the most amount of damage to my character. As if I had to roll that over and over again. So rolling 6s is even going to kill me first. Rolling 7s will kill me first. I would have to roll 8s. I'd have to roll an 8 5 times. An 8 or better 5 times. I will leave this fight with endurance points of 2 left. I don't see it getting any better than that. So I'll roll this die 5 times and we'll see if I can get an 8. There's a 9. There's a 1. There's a 5. There's a 4. And there's an 8. Nine, 8. I would have lost 5 altogether. He would have lost 13. So 12 versus his 17. Then a 1. I would have lost 8, so I would have brought down to 4. And I would have died. So yeah, no matter what I do, I'm just going to die in battle over and over again against this foe. Unless I can go back even further from this choice and not accept the knight's offer. I think that would probably be more fair, because the other path is instant death, and I cannot win this battle. So we'll do that. I'll go back and I'll deny the prince's offer. Deny the knight's offer to join him in battle against the prince. It seems like a very scummy thing to do. But I did check out the refugees, and I did fight the Geoks in the small village. So I did get something done. But we'll go back to that point and pick up from there. And if I get routed to this battle again, I'll have no choice but to fight it and walk away with 2 endurance points. I have gotten a new 10-sided die. It will be much easier to see in the camera, and I won't have to pick up my dice tray, and I will stop rolling either 1s or 9s. 1s 9 times out of 10, 9 1 time out of 10. That last die is not going into the dunce chair, it is going into the garbage. So, when last we left this journey, I had been faced with a choice of calling over what appeared to be the King's Guard, and accepting or refusing the invitation to join them to assist their prince. Accepting their invitation meant fighting a beast-like lizard creature who was very strong and overpowered me several times. I did not win after several attempts to fight this enemy. I was simply at too much of a disadvantage due to my low combat score. The other option had me running into the forest where I was immediately killed. Rather than stop playing at that point, I decided to go back another section of the book and make a different choice. And it's from there that I will continue my journey. So at this point, I will have had 16 endurance points because I hadn't completed the passage that led me past the knight's choice, the knight's offer. Out of the 27 endurance points, that I'm gaining 1 every turn because I have the Kai skill of healing. But enough of that, let us now play. Section 81, and I'll just repeat this section. After nearly an hour, the Kron and their cruel riders vanish towards the west. As the shocked refugees start to emerge from the woods, you can hear the sound of horses in the distance galloping nearer. You stay hidden and wait as the riders come closer. They are the cavalry of the King's Guard, wearing the white uniforms of His Majesty's army. If you wish to call to them, turn to 183. No. If you would rather continue along the forest edge towards the south, turn to 200. They know what they're doing, I'll leave them be. 200. Night is starting to close in. Illustration 12. Here's illustration 12. And the description says, you notice a large merchant's caravan in the center of the dusty turnpike. The shadows of the forest are growing longer and darker. Just as you are about to stop and rest, you see through the trees a line of people moving south along a wide highway. Moving closer, you notice a large merchant's caravan in the center of the dusty turnpike. It is drawn by 6 large horses and is moving much faster than any of the other traffic. This could be your chance to reach the capital as quickly as possible. If you wish to jump onto the caravan, turn to 78. If you wish to use the Kai discipline of camouflage to hide in among the packing cases strapped to the roof, turn to 168. I'll get a turn to 78. I don't have that skill and I don't have any other choice. Oh yeah. Passing by, this is the enemy that felled me several times. He was very strong. I'm sure there are stronger. As the caravan careers past, you leap for the tailboard and manage to hold fast. Pulling yourself upright, you find that you are standing on the bottom rung of a ladder leading to the rear door of the wagon. Suddenly the top half of the door flies open and you are confronted by the angry face of the bodyguard. If you decide to inform him that you are a Kai Lord with an urgent message for the king, offer him gold crowns for safe passage, or attack the guard, turn to the appropriate page. Gold crowns? How could this possibly end? I'd better take note of the passage I'm on, which is 78. I also gained 1 point for leaping onto the caravan, and I will have gained another endurance point for completing this section. But I don't know what to do. I suppose I need to inform him that I'm a Kai Lord. Let's be honorable first. 132. He may not agree. The bodyguard looks at you with great suspicion and slams the door. You can hear voices chattering inside the caravan. All of this while I'm teetering on the back of a moving carriage. Suddenly, the door swings open and the face of a wealthy merchant appears. He recognizes your Kai cloak and apologizes for his servant's behavior. Can I come inside, please? He says that they've been attacked several times since they left Iran. By Kran, by bandits, and by robbers. They thought you may have been abandoned. Inside, the caravan is full of silks and spices. The merchant offers you food, which you gratefully accept. After your sumptuous meal, the fatigue of your ordeal finally overcomes you, and you slip into a deep sleep. That's not good. Turn to 64. You are awoken by the cries of a Kran circling above the caravan. It is early morning and the sky is clear and bright. You can see a pack of doom wolves less than a quarter of a mile away along the highway ahead. They are preparing to attack. You must act quickly. If you decide to gather your equipment and run for the cover of the trees, turn to 188. But I am no coward, so if you decide to cut free one of the horses and try to break through the attacking doom wolves to the clear road beyond, then turn to 16. Boy, I really am just looking out for myself, aren't I? 16 it is. You manage to free a horse from the straps securing it to the caravan. It is frightened by the scent of the approaching doom wolves and the cries of their evil riders, the Gyaks. Preparing your weapon, you spur your skittish horse towards the oncoming beasts. They are less than 50 yards away and they are lowering their lances at you as they get nearer and nearer. You are charging head-on towards each other. Turn to 192. You see the razor-fanged mouth of a doom wolf and hear the hideous cries of the Gyaks. Two of them are coming straight for you. You are saved from certain death when your horse jumps at the approaching beasts, knocking them both to the ground. You lash out at the Gyak and open a large wound in his head. And then suddenly, as if by a miracle, you're through and racing on down the highway, clear of the rest of the pack. What about the merchants? But a shadow follows you. It is a Kran and it has started to dive. Its target is you. If you veer off the highway towards the cover of the trees, turn to 171, but if you press on regardless of the Kran and gallop flat out down the highway, turn to 120. That is what we'll do. Although I'm going to take note that I'm on page 192, with 22 endurance points. I'm nearly fully healed. 120 it is. Behind you, you can hear the blood-crazy Gyaks killing the caravan horses. Aww. You risk a quick glance over your shoulder and see a Kran start to climb high into the air. Will it attack you? Or is it interested in something else? The dark shadow that is gradually getting larger all around tells you that you are its intended victim. The Kran is diving full speed at you. If you wait until it's about to strike, then jump from the saddle, turn to 84. If you head as fast as you can for the trees, turn to 171. If you put your head down, pray to the heavens for good luck, and gallop on regardless, turn to 54. I'm going to do that, put my head down and pray. I'm sure that I'm going to get picked up by this beast. It would seem that the heavens have not heard your prayers. A spear whistles past your head and embeds itself in the neck of your galloping horse. With a shriek of pain, the horse topples forward and you both roll in a tangled heap on the highway. Dazed and pinned down by the weight of the dead body of your horse, the last thing you remember are the sharp, penetrating spearheads of the Gyak lances. You have failed in your mission. Well, very well. We'll go back to this section. 120. Let's head as fast as we can for the trees. Turn 171. I do not want to sacrifice this horse. You are at the very edge of the wood when your horse rears up in agony. The Kran has sunk its claws deep into the horse's hind leg and is trying to knock you to the ground with its wings. The ghoulish Gyak rider squeals with delight as he stabs at you with his spear. You jump to the ground and dash for the trees, leading the poor dying horse in the clutches of the Kran. Turn to 303. I did gain my endurance point from each of those last two sections, bringing me up to 24. My poor horse. 303 it is. The forest here is sparse and hilly. It does not give much cover from an attack from the air. You move as quickly as you can from tree to tree to avoid the Kran, but you can hear the sound of doom wolves close behind. If you have the Kai discipline of camouflage, but I don't, so I shall turn to 72 and gain one more endurance point. For 25, here we are, 72. You turn to face a sneering Gyak and the razor-fanged jaws of its mount. You must fight them as one enemy. Oh boy. Gyak plus Doomwolf, combat skill 15, endurance 24. Well, my combat skill is 11, but I get 2 with my weapon skill and my dagger, which I have the weapon skill in, and Mind Blast. So our combat ratio is 0 and 0. All I have to do is fight this enemy. 24 endurance points versus 25 until they fall. Not a bad combat ratio. Let's go. 6. With 6, the enemy loses 8 and Lone Wolf loses 2. I'm down to 23, however, they are down to 16. 10! Or, 0, but the 0 is here. I lose nothing and the enemy loses 12. The enemy now has 4 endurance points left. 6 again. Meaning, I've lost 2 endurance points, but they are dead. I have 21 endurance points left, and I've won. I shall turn to 265. You quickly move off into the forest before more doom wolves or Kran appear. You have walked for more than an hour when you reach the top of a rocky hill. The sight that befalls you on the other side is one of hope, but there is also a daunting challenge to be faced. Turn to 142. I shall take my endurance point back, thank you. You can see the tall, gray-white walls and glimmering spires of Holmgard, its banners fluttering from the battlements in the fresh morning breeze. Stretching out towards the west, the river Elidil traces its course from the mountains of the Durnkrag Range to the Holm Gulf. But from below the mountain peaks, you can see a vast black army marching relentlessly on towards the city. To your right, you can see the highway heading off over the rolling plain towards Holmgard. At a run, you could reach the outer fieldworks of the city defenses in an hour, but you would be in the open for most of the time and vulnerable to attack by Kran. However, ahead of you, a wide and muddy river drifts sluggishly towards the Elidil. You could use the cover of the riverbanks and swim towards the capital. Or, towards your left lies the graveyard of the ancients. These tombs and crumbling monuments to a forgotten age would conceal your approach, but it is a forbidden area. Many are the unnamed horrors that lie there in restless sleep, waiting to consume the unwary trespasser. I can try my luck by the highway, try via the river, or risk the unknown perils of the graveyard of the ancients. Well, if you've been watching this channel for any amount of time, you must know that this last option is the one that appeals to me the most, and I'm going to turn to 102. But not before taking my next endurance point. 102. As you descend the rocky slope towards the graveyard of the ancients, you are aware of a strange mist and cloud that swirls all around this gray and forbidding place, blocking the sun and covering the graveyard in a perpetual gloom. A chill creeps forward to greet your approach. With a feeling of deep dread, you enter the eerie necropolis. Turn to 284. Your passage through the graveyard will not be easy, for the ground is broken and covered with a thorny graveweed. This wicked briar tears your cloak and cuts your legs. The air hangs heavy and still. Foul gases seep from open crypts, and the haunting murmur of distant whispering fills your ears. And here's the picture of this graveyard. Carefully you approach a gap between two ancient pillars and part the graveweed with your cloaked hand. Suddenly, the ground collapses beneath you and you fall in a tumble of earth and stone. Turn to 71. Once again, I am almost completely healed. You are winded but not hurt. You have fallen 15 feet or so through the roof of an underground tomb. The walls are sheer and you cannot climb them. An arched tunnel leads out of the tomb towards the east, in front of which lies the sarcophagus of some ancient noble. If you wish to open the sarcophagus to see if it contains any treasure, turn to 242. If you wish to leave, turn to 104. Or you can use Sixth Sense, which I don't have. I feel like opening the sarcophagus is the most adventurous thing to do right now. But I can't imagine that it does have treasure that I could use other than crowns. And I'm more aware that this section is set up to where I'll be attacked by something undead, which may happen anyway before I leave this cemetery. I'll turn to 104 this time and avoid the danger. Hopefully. We'll see. 104. The walls are dank and slimy. The stale air chokes you and cobwebs brush across your face. You can feel panic grip your stomach as the tunnel gets darker and darker. You reach a junction where the tunnel meets a corridor leading from north to south. Which way shall I go? I've already saved my position. I'm at 104. I will go south. I shall turn to 100. And it looks like that's a selection page. So not an immediate death. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and make some room on my character sheet here. I'm back to 27 endurance points. Feeling pretty good about that. It's a really good thing I chose healing as my stat, but at the same time, maybe that makes the game kind of easy mode. I'm not sure. It makes it playable. The gold corridor suddenly makes an abrupt turning towards the east. You notice a greenish glow that lights the tunnel in the far distance. As you creep near, you can see that the corridor opens out into a larger chamber. The strange light seems to emanate from a large bowl resting upon the top of a granite throne. On a plinth in front of the throne stands a statue. It looks like a winged serpent curved in the shape of an S. If you wish to sit on the throne, turn to 161. Why would I do that? If you wish to examine the statue, turn to 133. If you wish to look for an exit from this chamber, turn to 257. I think I'm going to actually sit on the throne. I think that sounds like a very, very bad idea, full of danger and adventure. Why wouldn't I? For surely it must activate some trap. To 161. I have full endurance points. What need have I for fear? As you sit down, the stone serpent slowly moves forward on its plinth. You suddenly break out in a cold sweat and grasp your weapon with trembling fingers in case it should attack. A red forked tongue appears from the head of this strange statue and dips into the bowl of green light above your head. Slowly, the tongue reemerges holding a golden key which, to your surprise, it drops into your lap. A panel in the east wall clicks open to reveal an exit. You take the key and leave as quickly as possible. Turn to 209. Well then. Key from Serpent, I suppose, is what I'll write down. Now I'm carrying that in my backpack. 209. You see a corridor sloping upwards, and as you reach the top of this slope, a stone portal slides across to reveal another passage ahead. You step through the opening, which then quickly closes with a crunch. Turn to 23. I haven't wrote down a save yet, because this could still very well lead me to death. 23. The corridor soon widens into a large hall. At the far end, a stone staircase leads up to a huge door. 2 black candles on either side of the stone steps dimly illuminate this chamber. You notice that no wax has melted, and as you get nearer you can feel that they give off no heat. They must be LEDs. Ancient engravings cover the stone surface of the walls. Anxious to leave this evil tomb, you examine the door for a latch. An ornate pin appears to lock the door, but there is also a keyhole in the lock plate. I can remove the pin if I have the Kai discipline of mind over matter, which I don't. That would be an option. Or if I have a golden key, I can turn to 326. What was the color of the key given to me by the serpent? It is the golden key. It is the golden key that the serpent gave me. So, I'm going to turn to 326, and I suppose I should place a save here. Section 23. 326. You carefully insert the key and turn it clockwise. You hear a dull click. The key works. You lift out the pin, and the large granite door slowly swings towards you on hidden hinges. The gray half-light of the graveyard floods into the tomb. The exit is overgrown with graveweed, and you suffer many cuts to your face and arms as you fight your way through to the surface. Looking back, you see the tomb door slowly close, and a cruel, inhuman laugh seems to rise out of the very ground on which you stand. In blind panic, you race through the eerie necropolis towards the south gate. So I wonder if the other two would have resulted in death, or if I would have been led back to the room with the serpent. I hope that I didn't miss anything important. It's always good to grab different items and the like, but it might be okay. So, we're going to turn to 61. At last, you can reach the wooden fieldworks surrounding the outer city. As you race towards a sentry post, you can hear the excited shouts of the guards cheering you on. Thank the gods they recognize you, for you must appear a ragged and suspicious figure. Your cloak is torn and hangs in tatters. Your face is scratched and blood-smeared, and the dust of the graveyard covers you from head to toe. Splashing through a shallow stream, you stagger towards the gate. The full horror of the graveyard encounter begins to catch up with you. The last thing you recall, before exhaustion robs you of consciousness, is falling into the outstretched arms of 2 soldiers who have run from the fieldworks to help you. Turn to 268. You black out for only a few minutes before you are revived with a measure of strong spirit. Feeling wary but thankful to be alive, you lean on the shoulders of the king's men and you stagger towards the outer defenses. Turn to 288. For those wondering why there are so many smaller sections, sometimes these smaller sections are gateways that many other sections point to instead of just one. And they help provide context to how you get to where you're at and what kind of shape you're in once you get there. As you reach the walls of the fieldworks, the large oak gates open and you are quickly hurried inside. A sergeant, blood-stained and battle-weary, calls to an officer who turns and recognizes your cloak. "My lord," he says, "where are the other Kai masters? We are in desperate need of their wisdom. The Dark Lords press us most cruelly, and casualties are high." You inform the brave officer of the terrible fate of your kinsmen and the urgency of your mission, to seek the king's counsel. Without saying a word, he motions to a soldier to bring forward 2 horses. You both mount and gallop off towards the high city wall of Holmgard. Finally, to Holmgard! We're taking the Kai Lords to Holmgard. Let's go to 129. 129. You reach the main gates of the capital and stare in awe at the height of the city's walls. 200 feet high, the walls of Holmgard have withstood the ravages of both time and the Dark Lords. You and the officer race through the tunnel of the inner gatehouse, 100 yards in length, and finally halt outside the doorway of the main watchtower. Great crowds of soldiers and civilians are running to and fro. If you wish to continue following the officer, turn to 3. If you feel that you would stand a better chance of making your way to the King's Citadel on your own, turn to 144. We need to follow the officer. He got us here. I think we can trust him. But let's mark this down as a save point as well. 129 to 3. Staying close to the officer, you follow him through an arched portal and up a short flight of stairs to a long hall. Soldiers run back and forth bearing orders on ornate scrolls to officers stationed around the city wall. A haggard and scar-faced man, dressed in the white and purple robes of the king's court, approaches you and bids you follow him to the citadel. I can decline his offer and return to the crowded streets, or I can follow him. I think it best if we go ahead and follow him right away. And we'll turn to 196 to do so. 196. You follow the man into a small library off the main hall. He pushes one of the many books on the shelves which line all 4 walls, and you hear a metallic click. One section of the bookcase slowly slides back to reveal a hidden passage. I can follow the man into the passage, or if I don't want to enter the dark corridor, I can leave the guild hall and return to the street. This is my second opportunity to leave and go turn to page 144. And I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if 144 is more like a hub. I think I'm going to follow him. I won't lie though, I'm kind of curious what is the deal with 144. Let's follow him to 332. You walk for nearly 10 minutes along a dark and winding corridor, and then start to climb a steep staircase to a small wooden door. The man presses a secret catch and the door opens. You enter a large, plushly decorated bedroom with a huge marble bath that takes up one corner of the room. The man suggests that you refresh yourself here while he seeks an audience with the king. You quickly bathe and change into some white robes that have been left out on a large marble table. Shortly, the man returns and leads you through a long corridor lined with exquisite tapestries. You finally arrive at a large door guarded by 2 soldiers wearing silver armor. You are about to meet the king. Turn to 350. 350 contains the illustration which we'll look at here in just a moment. You enter the Chamber of State, a magnificent hall decorated lavishly in white and gold. The king and his closest advisors are studying a large map spread upon a marble plinth in the center of the chamber. Their faces are lined with worry and concentration. A silence fills the hall as you tell of the death of your kinsman and of your perilous journey to the citadel. As you finish your story, the king approaches and takes your right hand in his. Lone Wolf, you have selfless courage, the quality of a true Kai Lord. Your journey here has been one of great peril, and although your news comes as a grievous blow, the spirit of your determination is like a beacon of hope to us all in this dark hour. You have brought great honor to the memory of your masters, and for that we praise you. You receive the praise and heartfelt thanks of the entire hall, an honor that brings a certain redness to your young face. The king raises his hand and all the voices cease. You have done all that Summerland could have asked of a loyal son, but she is greatly in need of yours still. The Dark Lords are powerful once more, and their ambition knows no bounds. Our only hope lies within Durinor, with the power that once defeated the Dark Lords an age ago. Lone Wolf, you are the last of the Kai. You have the skills. Will you journey to Durinor and return with the Sommersword, the Sword of the Sun? Only with that gift of the gods may we crush this evil and save our land. If you wish to accept the quest of the Sommersword, begin your adventure with Book 2 of the Lone Wolf Adventures, Fire on the Water. And here's the illustration. In this great hall, lined with tapestries, the faces of the king and his closest advisors are lined with worry and concentration. It seems that we have completed Book 1 of Lone Wolf's magnificent epic journey.